Right now, a single 1,000-foot oil tanker is moving through one of the most important waterways on Earth. The space it's navigating is so narrow that a modern anti-ship missile could cross it in under 30 seconds. This is not just another shipping route. Every day, nearly 20% of the world's oil, around 20 million barrels, passes through this exact stretch of water. If that flow is disrupted, energy prices spike, supply chains slow down, and economies around the world feel it almost immediately. This is the Strait of Hormuz. It sits between Iran and Oman, and despite being over 20 miles wide at its narrowest point, the actual lanes ships use are much smaller, just 2 miles wide in each direction. Outside those lanes, the water is too shallow or too dangerous for massive oil tankers. That means everything depends on a very small corridor. One blocked ship, a few sea mines, or a targeted strike could shut it down completely. This is where the balance of power shifts. Iran does not need a dominant navy to control this space. It only needs to make the strait too risky to use. And in modern shipping, risk alone is enough. If insurance companies refuse to cover vessels, the ships do not move. It is that simple. Over the years, this threat has become one of the most powerful tools in global politics. Every time tensions rise, shipping costs increase, oil prices react, and governments start looking for alternatives that do not really exist. So the question comes up again and again. What if the Strait of Hormuz could be bypassed entirely? What if there was another route, one that avoided this choke point completely? For years, engineers and strategists have explored a bold idea, a massive canal cut through the northern tip of Oman, known as the Musandam Peninsula, a direct connection between the Persian Gulf and the open waters of the Gulf of Oman. On a map, it looks simple. The Gulf is like a closed room filled with oil, and Hormuz is the only door. Countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE have tried to build pipelines to get around it. But those pipelines can only carry a fraction of what ships move every day. To truly solve the problem, you would need a second exit, a new door. And Musandam looks like the perfect place to build one. At certain points, the land separating the two bodies of water is only a few dozen miles wide. Cut through it, and tankers could avoid the strait completely. But the moment you look beyond the map, the idea starts to fall apart. This is not flat desert. The Musandam Peninsula is part of the Hajar mountain range. Sharp limestone peaks rise thousands of feet into the air. Some reach over 6,500 feet. Building a canal here would not mean digging through sand. It would mean cutting through entire mountains. To handle the world's largest oil tankers, the canal would need to be massive, deep, wide, and stable. The amount of rock that would need to be removed is almost unimaginable. The cost alone could exceed $200 billion. And that is just the engineering side. There is also the issue of sovereignty. This land belongs to Oman, and there is no indication the country wants to turn one of its most unique regions into a massive industrial corridor. Its focus is on tourism, stability, and controlled development, not becoming the center of a global energy choke point. Even if funding and political agreement somehow came together, another problem remains. A canal does not remove risk, it simply moves it. Instead of relying on the Strait of Hormuz, the world would depend on a single artificial channel. One accident, one attack, or one grounded ship could block it just as easily. The vulnerability does not disappear, it just changes location. And that leads to a larger reality. Modern global trade depends on a handful of narrow routes, a canal in Egypt, a strait in the Middle East, a few key passages that carry enormous pressure every single day. We have built a system that moves energy and goods across the planet at incredible speed, but that system still relies on geography that cannot be easily changed. The idea of the Musandam Canal is powerful because it promises control over that geography, a way to remove one of the world's biggest risks. But in practice, it remains just that, an idea. For now, the Strait of Hormuz remains exactly what it has always been, one of the most important and most fragile energy corridors on Earth. And as long as the world depends on it, a 2-mile strip of water will continue to influence the global economy in ways that no one can fully control. The dream of the Musandam Canal is seductive. Cut a channel straight through the peninsula, bypass the strait entirely, and let ships sail freely into the Gulf of Oman. Even if that were possible, politics crushes the plan. Musandam belongs to Oman, whose priorities are tourism, ports, and environmental preservation. Convincing a global coalition to finance, secure, and manage such a project is a near impossible task. And here's the hard truth. Even a canal wouldn't remove risk. It would just create another choke point. A single stuck ship could paralyze oil flow just like in the Strait of Hormuz. Geography is stubborn. Humans can't simply redraw the map. This is the paradox of modern energy. Technology allows us to build skyscrapers and probe the edges of space, yet the flow of oil still depends on a few fragile corridors carved out by nature. Every tanker passing through Hormuz is a reminder that billions of dollars, jobs, and energy security are chained to a bottleneck no one can fully control. Strategists call it a pressure point. For Iran, it's a card in geopolitical poker. For global powers, it's a test of foresight and risk management. The world can debate pipelines, canals, or naval strategies, but none of it changes the basic math. Oil must pass through narrow waters. Supply lines are finite. The Strait of Hormuz remains a razor edge between order and chaos. Ultimately, the lesson is simple. No engineering feat, no political deal, no fleet of warships can erase the fundamental truth. The Strait of Hormuz is indispensable, unavoidable, and vulnerable. It is the planet's energy artery, a choke point that shapes economies, conflicts, and the choices of nations every single day. And until humanity finds a way to rewrite geography itself, we remain passengers on a system defined by 2 miles of water.